We're live.
We're live.
We're live.
Wow.
We'll fucking do it live. And I should take some time to get that. It won't be hard. I just got to take time to figure out how to get the clip to play and make it look smooth. So let us share.
Oh, nice. I got a YouTube notification. Watch live now. I read it TV.
Hell yeah!
That's so cool.
I'll post it on Telegram.
Oh, also what? I was just listening to the Ordinary Revolution podcast the other day, and the guy was like, please hit like and share. I know it's super annoying, and I was wondering this whole time why people always say hit like and share, but it's really huge. Like every like gets you like 5 new viewers or something. Somebody came up with some stats on it.
Yeah.
And so reinforcing this with the few viewers that we have is like super important. Um, Ideally, multiple times during the
That's a good point. And
convo.
thank you for bringing that because I think we should incorporate this and it wouldn't be very difficult. Is the I'm watching a lot of videos and they have this sound that goes ding ding, and multiple videos do it, so it must be a common thing. And
Absolutely.
a pop up comes up. I really like that because it's not interrupting the flow of
Yeah,
whatever I'm listening to.
but I think also interrupting the flow is probably also not so bad because it really reinforces. It's like, okay, come on, dude. Hit the
Right.
freaking like, hit the share.
We're not asking you for any money.
Right.
Do us one
You're
thing here,
literally
right?
Um, so yeah, I think it has to be a little bit intrusive, a little bit
Well,
annoying
let's do both then.
to get that extra reinforcement.
Let's do both. Oh, and we should send a message to Daniel to have another conversation with him.
Yeah.
I'll do that right now. No whistling.
Sorry.
Did you know in Ukrainian culture you're not supposed to whistle inside somebody's house because it's bad luck?
I did not know that.
A Ukrainian girl yelled at me when I was living in Austria about that.
Yeah, probably the Zelensky squad will probably raid your home if you whistle. You sound too suspiciously happy. You can't have that. So, because I hold a runestone NFT, I got an airdrop of the dog token, which is basically now worth $4,300.
Theoretically, right? How easy is it to sell?
No, I can sell it on a swap. It's currently because the runestone was locked in on Merlin's seal. My dog tokens are on the Merlin chain, so I can sell them on a Merlin exchange at a bit of a discount at the moment, which has to do with I think lack of liquidity at the moment.
Yeah.
But you can sell if you have them in your regular Unisat wallet or whichever non Merlin wallet. You can sell them right now at that price on Unisat, for example, and also on Magic Eden. There was just
How come you didn't grab me and say, Dylan, you got to get a runestone right now?
yeah, because
That's what I want you to do.
yeah, no, I can't be your like 24/7 investment
But you
concierge.
could be 23/7.
Yeah, because like the thing is with some of these things, like I'm shooting darts in the dark kind of thing. I don't really know
I know.
which one. So the runestone um, cost like $4,500 or so when I bought it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so but so there's this dog go to the moon. This is a number 3 rune etched on Bitcoin. So this was a big race in the beginning. Who can get the earliest runes? Like some obscure entity got rune number 1. Somebody decentralized, which is probably Cyberkongs, got number 2, and number 3 was dog goes to the moon. And it was an NFT. It's a meme coin that's been hyped by the meme NFT historian Leonidas. His Twitter is at Leonidas NFT. And so that is, I mean, that's been hugely awaited. And everyone who had a runestone got like at this point $4,300 for free. in their wallet.
So
And
you got a
it could
double.
go
You
up.
paid
It could go.
$4,300 for the rune stone, and you got another $4,300 thing on top of it.
Yeah, the runestone price has dropped at the moment to like 2,000 or $2,500 or so. But there's other airdrops coming for the runestone too. So um, yeah,
So let's start off with this. We talk about evolution of civilizations a lot, and in our, I guess, in an episode we haven't uploaded yet, which is going to be the fourth series of our talk with John Coleman from Apocastasis Institute. There we go. About evolution of civilizations, really looking at, whether or not crypto is going to lead the way to the new instrument of expansion within Western civilization and get us out of the age of conflict and back into the age of expansion again. Woo! That's some high-minded stuff, Nima. that, that's a big pitch. So I think we should start with, okay, real quick, what's the instrument of expansion? What are these phases? Because in all here, if you're listening to this conversation, one thing that we always want to get across is it's really not as bad as you think. Things are really bad
yeah,
right now, but we're not. We haven't fallen off the precipice yet. And I'm sure a lot of people could throw up their hands and go, "Oh my God, let me give you all these examples of all the reasons everything's so bad. We're falling off the precipice." Yes, and we have deconstructed that very, very, in very much detail on previous episodes, because a lot of what we see now, I would say the majority of what we see now, is what you see in a typical age of conflict in any civilization. And if we go by the Carol Quigley's definition of how this works, that we have not gone to the point in the age of conflict where we're at the point of no return yet. Very, very clearly, I believe we've been able to delineate that. So the Western civilization, 3 times in the past, has gone through an age of conflict and has figured out how to reinvent itself, for lack of a better term, and go back into an age of growth or an age of expansion. Nima and I believe that, I don't know if it's safe to say that we're on the verge. The battle is happening right now. And depending on where people put their energy, we could be on the verge of a new age of expansion. But the first thing that has to happen in order for that to actually occur is you have to stop being fatalistic and black-pilled about it and be open to the idea that there is a way through this. So, Nima,
yeah.
what do we mean?
Well said.
What do we mean by an instrument of expansion?
Instrument of expansion is a societal instrument that allows the society to grow in terms of economic production, territory occupied, knowledge accumulated, and
Scientific knowledge,
yeah, a few
increased
other
standards of living.
components.
Yeah.
And economically, the way that a society grows is by not consuming all of its
Surplus.
surplus, or let's say so let's say if you imagine a hand-to-mouth economy where we're just growing crops and eating them right out of the ground all day, then you always start from zero. You're stagnating at the same level. You're not increasing worker productivity. But the way you increase worker productivity is by having more machines, by having more computers, by having more automation, so that every input unit of labor produces more output for everyone. So how do we get to that state where we have those things, right? Carol Quigley says that that's the definition of a civilization, is a producing society with an instrument of expansion. There can be producing societies without instruments of expansion, like the early agrarian empires. There was like places that were like that, right? That were pretty much just producing societies, but they didn't have a method of growth. So how does
because they
this
didn't save it and reinvest it.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So how does this growth happen? Through the instrument of expansion. What's the instrument of expansion? Consists of savings, invention, and investment. And why are these three things? It's almost like, it's like the Trinity, the Holy Trinity of expansion. You need all these three things working together in order to for efforts to be put in projects where you don't just consume hand to mouth all day. So you're building, you're like, how to so you
Did you forget three
somebody
steps?
was yeah.
You got to create the surplus, you got to save the surplus, and then you have to reinvest that or invest that surplus
Right.
into new inventions that allow you to create more surplus.
Right. So, so what's the significance of creating the surplus, the savings? In my opinion, the real significance is really only that there are people who have something that others want but don't have. I mean, that's probably as simplistic as I can describe it, right? Because if you are in that kind of situation, the people who have stuff that others want but don't have can be put in lines of work that can be profitable businesses. Build me a factory, build me this. You can employ people. So in this example, of course, it's money, right? So there's money that's spent on employment to build a factory, and then employment to build machinery, to build computers and all this stuff. These are not things that can be eaten or consumed. You can't live in them or whatever, but they increase worker productivity in the long term. So
It creates more things that we can consume. So
right,
we
so,
spent we spent resources on stuff we can't consume, but ultimately that ends up creating more things that we can consume.
right, you're
Right.
setting your economy. You're climbing to a higher level of capital in the economy, so that there's more production per unit of labor input. So you have the savings. The savings is this thing where we have some people who have stuff that others don't have and want. You have like this disparity of wealth. Without that, technically, there would really be no investment. So there has to be some sort of, people have like a bunch of stuff that other people want. In modern times, like we said, it's money. In ancient times,
In
it was
ancient times, probably food. Just like I got to store food,
food, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Or even just with the Sumerian priesthoods, because they had this insight in the movements of the stars, so they could predict floods and weather situations, which were all crucial to growing crops, basically, right?
Hmm.
So this knowledge was sort of uh, their surplus, I would say, and people went
I think this turns into real surplus. I mean, the knowledge is the way that they
right,
gain the
right.
surplus. But okay, now everybody pays me taxes, and taxes back then is it's food and sheep and whatever goats.
Mhm.
And now that they have the taxes, they can pay people to work. Actually, now that they have the surplus, they can pay people to work, like you just said.
But it wasn't necessarily taxes, right? It was like donations that were given to the priests, wasn't
Well,
it?
from my understanding, when there's a ruling elite, if you make a donation more than once, you just turned it into a tax.
Yeah, it's probably basically like it's. I guess it's like a tax in those days, you
Yeah.
could say. Um, Yeah, so I guess you could say that was a way of surplus accumulation. Or in the classical civilization, you said slavery, which was through political declaration of your status, I guess. Right? You have you're in an inferior status, and you have no choice but to work for those for whom you will be, creating profits and surplus at the end of the day. So how this surplus is achieved sort of defines the one aspect of this instrument of expansion. And I think basically the history of capitalism is, the different types of capitalism are described. They are distinguished by their savings, uh, by their method of savings accumulation. So yeah. So anyway, we have savings, we have invention. You need to actually have an idea on what can be done, right? What projects can we do that that grow the civilization, help us grow
And I mean, for
economically.
example, going the ancient examples like Samaria is, hey, let's build some irrigation, let's build some dikes so we can control the flooding better
Yeah.
to A, protect ourselves, and B, grow more crops.
Right, right. So
Yeah,
yeah, so invention and then investment. You need people who then take the ideas from the invention and take a risk and try to put it into practice, basically.
right.
So these are the three components of the instrument of growth. To answer your question.
So with that, now, I mean, we talked about, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head at the beginning there, is that this is like the defining characteristic of a civilization per Carol Quigley's definition, right? And the historical, scientific historical point that Carol Quigley makes is that any organization will eventually, or any instrument will eventually become an institution, which we're not going to go through the whole thing here, but to summarize it very quickly, is that an instrument will eventually develop a vested interest that is more interested in taking that accumulated surplus and spending it on themselves than they are in spending it on new invention that would create new capital to further create more future surplus. So back in the Sumerian age, okay, the priests get the surplus, they take that money, money, whatever, resources, and they hire people in order to build irrigation. And the irrigation creates more safety, and that allows people to grow more food, which allows a greater surplus, and everybody's getting richer. We can expand the population. We've got more money to have people not working directly in food. Now we can have, Babylonian mathematicians or whatever, right? Now, at some point, if the priests are like, you know what? I don't want to spend this on irrigation. I want to spend this on 40 concubines, and we're going to have a hell of a shindig this Christmas. I know they didn't celebrate Christmas, but we're gonna have a hell of a shindig this Christmas.
You.
That's gonna cost the same amount that it would cost to build this irrigation ditch. And we're gonna start building ziggurats and hanging gardens. So all this surplus that used to get reinvested back into the community, that the community got to experience the benefits from, the community's still paying for that, but it's all getting siphoned off. Or I shouldn't say it's all getting siphoned off. The change happens in such a way that they keep spending the same or more and more money, but for the money they're spending, they're getting less and less output for it. This is the instrument gradually turning into an institution.
But
Now,
also, more than that, I would say, in addition to these ostentatious expenses on themselves, they restrict a bunch of stuff during this phase, right? They start restricting competition. They start using force to suppress potential competition. I think that would probably
that's actually a good point. The way
hit
Quigley
home more.
defines it is that there's a tension of evolution, which is to say things change in society, right? What we did yesterday isn't necessarily what we're doing today because there's a new invention or there's new people or there's new idea or whatever, right? And the vested interests, they don't want that change
Right, right. So
because if it changes, they lose their power, they lose their resources, they lose their money.
exactly. So
So,
they may not even be spending. So the spending on themselves is not necessarily the big problem. I don't think it would be fine if there was still economic growth going on. People were still able to participate in the wealth society, because obviously the wealthy do spend a lot of money on stuff. Actually, also a lot of it technically they don't. They just keep it. It sits in stocks and bonds and savings and all that.
right.
So actually, interestingly, Peter Zehan cites this as a source of stability for the U.S. economy. That no matter how shitty things become, there's always a certain level of capital ready to be deployed to some extent in this country because of this huge discrepancy of wealth. It's like, we all heard the tropes, the 0.1% at the top, they own like whatever, 80, 90, 99% or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I get your point.
But yeah, this tension of evolution that you mentioned is that the longer your institution or your instrument it remains in operation, the more it becomes ossified and subject to
Resisting
complacency.
change. Yeah.
Right, so resisting change. So it seems like whenever we enter these ages of conflict, the people whose positions are threatened, they freak out and start suppressing everything, like we see right now. Suppression of speech like we've never seen in our lifetimes before. Suppression of competition on the suppression of competing in the medical field. Suppression of um, data. I guess that is once again suppression of information. um, what else? What am I missing?
No,
I'm probably
I'm
missing
I'm,
a
I'm
bunch
going to
of.
read something here. Keep talking once I find it.
But
Uh,
basically, yeah. So if society gets too wealthy, there's a few people who, the very wealthy, start becoming threatened more and
well,
more.
okay,
They
I
start
found it.
becoming
So
more.
so here's from the second age of conflict. So this is like the 1600s in Western civilization. I think if I read these examples and we start talking about what you talked about, this will hit this will nail it. In England, the patent power was used to prevent new techniques rather than to encourage them. As early as 1623, the Privy Council ordered the destruction of a machine for making needles. Cloth buttons, rather than bone, were forbidden in 1698, while Indian calico was forbidden in 1686. A law of 1666 ordered all persons to be buried in wool rather in the traditional linen. Every effort was made to prevent new techniques in the textile industry and thus, in effect, to hamper the growth of cotton textiles. And I mean, I'm not going to read the whole page, but it just goes on and on and on of all these examples of freaking out, like you just mentioned. I think is the best explanation of like, oh my God, we're losing control. Ban this, ban that. No, they can't have this. Don't
And
no,
what
hold
comes,
this over. Like everything. Don't change anything.
yeah, what
Right?
comes to mind,
That's exactly what we're seeing right now.
right? What comes to
Yeah.
mind as part of what you're saying also is the Gilded Age. I don't know if it's the same age that you're describing there, but there was a time, I think, in the medieval ages, where every profession created some kind of guild, and some of them still persist to this
No,
day,
I
right?
think that's first stage of conflict. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's an old recurring phenomenon, right? It's like, oh, the hammersmiths, they don't want like some young upshot hammersmith making better tools than they do.
for
And
cheaper. Yeah.
so they create a guild, and you can only be a hammersmith if you're in this guild. And if not, then they're probably going to pay you a visit, mafia style, be a shame if blah, blah, blah.
If your knees got broken by that new fancy hammer that you just built.
Be a shame if this trebuchet landed right on your whatever. Um, or yeah, so
Your
I don't know what
forge.
they
Yes.
fired off on the catapults, but they probably had fireballs, like giant scary fireballs to use with their trebuchets. Anyway,
Yeah, but
um,
to your point, I mean that's exactly what we're seeing today. I mean, I think the medical what was a perfect, or actually no, even better example. What we're doing right now, media, right? Look
yes,
look at what
media
happened since 2016. There was this
is
frantic whack
hilarious.
a mole of ban everybody.
Right, it's like the
Yeah,
authoritative media, like the respected people. The time is over where people are sitting in front of a TV to let Walter Cronkite tell them what is true and what isn't. Right, this is boomer mentality. Boomers still they are totally into that kind of epistemology, I guess you could say.
yeah.
Whatever is on the TV, it's not official. It's not true until it's officially declared true by some damn news
TV
anchor
talking
who
head.
reads from a dummy
Yes.
board, basically in front of a camera. But that was psychology, right? This was the method, the power, the magic of the media. They really understood how to appear authoritative, with this father figure who stares you in the face through the camera and tells you what is and what isn't. So this was still to
So,
this day, right? These
yeah,
people, they
and
do
that's the
wizardry.
model that's trying to play whack a mole with everything
Yeah.
challenging it, right?
And at the time, it was easy because they had the monopoly of the critical information nodes, the TV stations, the radio stations, the radio frequencies, and all that stuff. They were very tightly controlled by the government and or some kind of oligarchy um, operating under state control. And then even later on, those monopolies that we still have today. AT&T, that's American Telephone and Telegraph Corporation, right? So
Right.
um, Pacific Bell, and they were split up at one point, but
Side
these
note:
people.
did you know that people still use telegraphs?
No, I didn't know that.
I watched a stupid YouTube video about this. Apparently, uh, a telegraph. I don't remember the reason why carries more legal weight than an email or a letter.
I can see that.
So
I can see that.
for certain things that they really need like legal standing to have, they'll send a telegraph to make sure that they can prove that the message happened.
Yeah, I think actually basically a bank wire works based on telegraph technology or some expansion of it. So yeah, it's actually the telegraph hugely changed the West and the world. I mean, it changed so much. A lot of the things that we take for granted today were introduced by the telegraph, because prior to the telegraph people were more concerned with their local matters. It didn't really matter that something happened halfway across the globe. But with the telegraph, suddenly it was like almost the first Twitter, right?
Well, and
Suddenly
it was like Twitter because you couldn't send a book through the telegraph. You had like what
you have
20,
to be very
get your
short
message across in 20 words.
to be, yeah, for it to be
Yeah.
cheap it had to be very short. So yeah, the telegraph changed the conversation from, because back in the days, for example, Lincoln Douglas debates, these were like 2 3 hour debates, and families would attend the debates and listen intently, and they would have drawn out,
I think it was longer than
debate.
2 or 3 hours. I think they'd go to like 6 or 8.
Yeah, and
I,
it would have drawn out arguments, counter argument, real elaborate stuff. And then the Telegraph changed the conversation to short talking points, and also it sort of suddenly made people care about things no reason to care about,
right.
right?
Well, it created tabloids essentially, right?
Yeah,
The Queen of England got seen walking with
yeah,
the or whatever,
right,
right?
right,
Why does somebody in Midwest care about something like that? Oh, because
right.
it's now in a headline because we were only able to get 20 words of information through the telegraph, and that's what we sent.
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So anyway, why did we start talking to the Telegraph?
because we're
Jesus.
talking about media, and
Yeah, right, right.
I think this is in fact like a perfect example of what we're going to get to when we're talking about circumvention, right? So we've got a societal instrument which is media. Now, theoretically, the purpose of the media should be something like to inform the population about what's going on in the society, right? If we have that kind of as our golden ideal of what the media should be, I mean, it's so utterly laughable because what we have now, at least from the traditional media
Yeah,
standpoint,
is it a
is
joke?
is preventing the
Is to proactively
preventing
going
the population.
after
Yeah.
people who try to spread information. So yeah,
Well, I'm
exactly.
getting there. So they put a fake version out in order to prevent the people from getting the what's actually happening, and then stuff like us pop up, like, hey, we're gonna here's a new technology, here's the thing that can start to challenge you. And instead of them going, okay, well, we need to figure out how to compete, they do what you just said is, okay, how do we frantically stop all of that from
Well,
happening?
it's
Yeah.
literally journalists now who go run crying to mommy, FBI, or back in the days when Twitter was still, basically a state-run propaganda apparatus. They would tell Twitter, "Hey, this guy said mean things, so and so," and then Twitter would ban the guy. And it was lots and lots of journalists who were into this kind of nanny state, nannying the conversation. So, and by the way, also just by the by, journalists have held a position of privilege ever since the French Revolution, and they have become institutionalized, because back in the days of the French Revolution, they were the driving force of a lot of stuff that happened. And actually, it surprised me when I read the book "Fire in the Minds of Men" by James Billington, the director of the Library of Congress back in the day. He describes just how many journalists were involved in the French Revolution, how many tabloid or all kinds of journalists, authors, etc., were in pretty influential positions to make things happen during those days.
Well,
So
I think that elucidates the point being made here, because I mean I think you can make the argument the same about the American Revolution, is that before this time the populace didn't know what the hell was going on.
yeah,
Right, you had your elites fighting about whatever the heck the elites were fighting about, and maybe hey, we're drafting you into the army, or you get to starve to death because we've ended up burning your fields or whatever. But they don't take an active role, a active political role, or get to have an opinion about what's going on. The only way they were able to do that was with a very very literate population, more literate in America than in France. But B, like we're talking about here with media, someone's got to be writing the things to read. Right? What the hell's going on with the new National Assembly and the king, unless there are
right.
journalists writing about it to know,
And that also
right?
took technology and economic growth to even be able to do that, right? So it was a
Yeah.
form of deploying the surplus into some areas where information could be spread more effectively. I mean, the printing, I don't know, when was exactly the printing press invented? I don't know.
1480 something or other,
So
1520,
yeah, it
something
probably
like
took
that.
a while to for that stuff to get rolling, to become scalable on a larger scale. But yeah, so journalists, but nowadays just interested in talking at the people, and what, like you said, like a game of whack-a-mole, trying to eliminate all those who prove them wrong or who disagree with them. So
Well,
really hilarious situation
well,
from
and then
our perspective.
this gets to like the next part of what Quigley talks about in terms of what's the reaction to the instrument becoming an institution. There are three things that can happen. The first is he actually calls it reaction, where a new societal organization attempts to be created to challenge the old one and fails. The old one wins. That's called reaction. The second one is called reform, which is the organization itself. People are able to get into it and change it internally in order to do what it was supposed to do in the first place, or I guess also maybe what it did in the first place doesn't matter anymore because things have changed so much. Give it a new purpose and a new role that actually achieves something productive. The third option is called circumvention, which I already mentioned, is that something new is created that completely circumvents what the old institution is doing, and the old institution doesn't have the ability, or has a fight and loses the ability to stop it. Now, Quigley says that between reform and circumvention, circumvention is always easier. And in the examples of Western civilization going through its phases, each return to an age of expansion was always accomplished through circumvention, not through reform. Now, we're going to branch this back into the instrument of expansion, but still here talking about the media. I think this is a perfect case study of the fact that, okay, particularly starting in, I mean, it really started like in 2010, but it became really noticeable after the election of 2016. This super internet clampdown, this banning of everybody happening everywhere, particularly leading up to the 2020 election, this banning of everybody everywhere, and attempting to stifle these other media. I mean, I think Gab is a perfect example. I mean, I'm not saying left, right, or center whether Gab's good or bad or going to be successful or not, but the attempts to stamp out Gab financially is, don't let them have a bank account. Don't let them get access to a credit card.
I
No
mean,
financial services whatsoever,
yeah.
and we're going to demonize them in every corner of the media. They still were able to survive
Yeah.
through cryptocurrency, which is what we're going to get into right now. Look at all the other media outlets that are coming out. I mean, I guess Twitter actually got in quotes reformed, so great example of reform right there. But okay, YouTube's going sideways. We've got BitChute, which is kind of not turning out that great. We got Odyssey, we got Rumble. Okay, Twitter was going sideways. We have Gab, that all the and then okay, the internet providers of the governments are going, okay, we're going to still clamp down on them, and they go, okay, well we have VPNs. Okay, we have a decentralized network where you can't turn it off, right? So there's this tension happening, there's this battle happening, and it looks to me, on this case particular on media, the circumvention's winning.
Absolutely, it's
The
no doubt
circumvention's
about it.
winning, man.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
in terms of the instrument of expansion itself, we've been talking about how the
I mean,
crypto. Go
just
ahead.
to bring up one more. So with big tech, right? So big tech was this dynamic companies in the late '90s, early 2000s who um, invented new ways of doing things, of communicating, etc. And now they've just become institutions of oppression and suppression. Um, One thing that just comes to mind, one hilarious example was after Trump won the presidency in 2016, the Alphabet Corporation or Google had a company wide struggle session, a pity party
I
to
remember
talk
this.
about, oh my God, what are we going to do to never let this happen again? And they were talking about this like that's a thing, like that's their job to not
Yeah, and it
let.
wasn't rhetorical. It's not like, oh, what
Right.
are we going to do?
No,
It's
this
like, no,
was like,
we need to do something so this
what
can
did we?
never happen
How did
again.
we?
Yeah.
How did we let this thing that wasn't supposed to happen? How did we allow somebody we don't like to get elected into office? Incredible! Like the arrogance of these people is just one side of things, but this attitude of it was our job to not let this happen, and we failed. We're going to do everything we can to never let this happen again. This whole attitude is just, this is the one objective is we cannot let Trump win again, and all ends justify. So
Yeah, all ends justify the means. You had it right.
all ends justify the means that they took to get there at the end of the day, because they start censoring like crazy, adding their opinion, stupid little opinion notices everywhere. As soon as there's somebody talked about COVID or elections, they had to have the little call outs down there with the links to, here's the correct
Remember when we're
opinion.
on YouTube, they were
Of
100% true call,
course,
that
thanks
they were
YouTube.
true corrections that should never be questioned because they're 100% objective
Yeah,
and true.
thanks
Yes.
YouTube for doing that.
Yes.
So anyway, big tech and all this. So we're talking about institutionalization. I interrupted you. Um, I don't know if you remember what you were
Yeah. No.
going to.
So we got to define the age of expansion that we were on right now, or excuse me, the instrument of expansion that we're on right now. So we came out of World War II. I'm talking about Western civilization. We came out of World War II with a new instrument of expansion, which the prior instrument of expansion, if I could say it quickly, was industrial capitalism, mass production of goods. And at the beginning, people made more money by producing as many goods as possible. And then things got too cheap. And then they said, well, we'll make more money by restricting the flow of goods. And there's the phase this goes through, which was industrial
Industrial
capitalism, financial capitalism, and monopoly
monop-
capitalism,
monopoly capitalism. Yeah,
right?
industrial capitalism. It was just industrial capitalism. The companies' requirements to expand were so large that they needed the expertise of investment banks to pool large savings pools of money together and expand on a larger scale. And then for that reason, because the projects became larger, you needed the expertise of predicting which projects to build where and how profitable they're going to be. And this was investment banking. Also, by the way, the beginning of data capitalism, as I would call it, because that how do you predict how well a new expansion is going to do? You need data that you calculate future demand, whatever surveys this, blah blah so that's why it turned into the power center shift from industry to finance, where now finance had all the power to deploy the large
Because the banks wanted the boards in exchange for the loan.
banks were also sitting on the boards there, so they started deciding where capital gets deployed. Then that turned into monopoly capitalism. I forgot why exactly.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah, because the companies got so big and their profits got so big, they
Yes.
could fund their own projects.
Exactly. So in turn again, right? So it's like this ping pong game. So it came back these giant concerns that had been created by the investment banks became so profitable and were in such an advantageous position that they started building cartels, and then that was the era of the cartels, monopoly capitalism, and then that was basically the end of World War II. That's where
Yeah, yeah.
we
It
left
kind of
off.
it starts in World War One and kind of culminates in World War Two, right?
Yeah,
So sorry, trying to clear my throat here. Frog coming out, froggy.
ribbit.
So we enter the post World War II period, and then this is where Quigley leaves us, and we got to kind of figure it out ourselves. But essentially, it's less laissez-faire. That's kind of the dominating principle of the third age of expansion. This fourth age of expansion is dominated more by planning, where we've got these big blocks of industry. You've got heavy industry and light industry and labor and agriculture and all these different industries, and the government becomes the funding source for these different industries, and who could get the money in order to do whatever they wanted was how the production went, how anybody was able to produce, and the balancing factor was if any of these individual industries got too big, the other industries would group together to pull them back. That was the instrument. The institution, roughly from what me and Nima have been able to figure out, which is what we're living in right now, right, is that these industries have become so megalittically huge, and that data capitalism, like Nima said, they control so much data that they're the ones really calling the shots in terms of, okay, there's not all these industries competing like there were before. You've got the healthcare industry that controls all of healthcare, and then it controls the media in order to ensure that nobody can challenge what they're doing to really, really increase their profits. And then on the same side, we got Facebook, which controls Facebook, Twitter. This is before Elon Musk. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, which control disseminating information, but they all at the same time they collect all your data, and so now we can listen to everything that you're saying. Right now, this phone's listening to what I'm saying, and it's going to create ads based on the topic of this the topic of this conversation because it's collecting all this data. So that there's this huge game of how do we collect all the data possible, so we know everything about everyone, and we can control what they buy, control what they think, control what they sell. Put on a social credit score, or a social credit score rating system. Yeah, I mean, we're not there yet, but we all know that it's getting pushed in that direction. We need to have ESG. So what's that stand for again? Environment, societal, and governance.
Environmental, environmental, social, and
And
I
governance.
believe G is governance.
Governance, right? We need to have ESG. We need to have diversity. We need to have all these things that have nothing to do with frickin' production, but everything to do with making sure that certain groups wield massive amounts of power over everybody else, right?
Yes, and also
That's where we're at right now.
I also I want to bring up data again because I think data is used to blackmail a lot of people to doing things
Yes.
these days, and people tend to underestimate how much the world runs on blackmail. So think of, you can have the wealthiest guy in the world with the most money power
Keep talking. I'll get more water.
imaginable. Yeah. Um, Whereas in like the 1920s, 30s, that guy could have unconditionally wielded a lot of power before the advent of the FBI, maybe. But even the FBI didn't have the data collection powers that they have today. So you can have like the super wealthy dude, but you somehow compromised him, got dirt on him through control of data. I mean, I'm just trying to illustrate how there's this new power leverage tool that has just swept in that didn't exist to this extent back
Well,
in the day.
it's even
Right?
worse than that. We don't even need dirt. We could make it up,
Right, exactly.
right? Because
Exactly.
we control the media apparatus that you'll never get the truth at. Yeah.
So yeah, just to illustrate my point about data capitalism, also if we just take a look at the largest corporations in America today, what kinds of companies are they? Largest
Amazon.
company, huh?
Amazon.
Amazon is up there. The largest company, Microsoft. Second largest, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Google. These are all big tech firms. They're the largest corporations of the country. So sometimes it doesn't even take much effort to figure out what kind of capitalism are we in today. Why are these companies so gigantic? Because data is the new resource that gives you the surplus that that gives these companies a surplus that they need to sustain themselves, that they the surplus that they want to maintain in as the institutions that they've ossified into now, right?
Right. And then
Um,
does the general public get the
that's
benefit of that
Broadcom, by the way.
surplus?
The only two companies that aren't big tech in this top, I think it's the top 10 list. Berkshire Hathaway, which owns a bunch of banks and insurance companies, basically. Eli Lilly, and that's it. Everything else is some kind of technology firm. Um, and so, yeah. So now, why is this whole AI push happening? Well, because these companies have gathered a ton of data, and AI is the next step after this, right? The data is the resource that they use to fuel the functioning of AI, right? I mean, does that
Right.
ever occur to you? Um, so now we've discussed before, this the problems with centralized AI versus decentralized AI. Um, we prefer like a decentralized AI that serves our needs, that improves our lives, that makes things easier for us, that is not used by people to dominate us. So, but just saying like this whole outgrowth of the data obsession is turned into the next phase, which is this whole AI paradigm that we're in now. Um, so anyway, my point is just like just looking at the largest corporations, the countries are all data, big data or
Right.
data related
They
firms.
are, and then in terms of like the power that they wield. I mean, we just talked about, with the 2016 election, how do we make sure we never have this happen again? Well, what they did is they played whack-a-mole, banning everybody, right? Oh, someone spoke out against the medical wonders of the medical system, banned, right? And you spoke out about the wrong thing. We'll block you from the financial system. And I think that's supposed to be the
Which,
biggest weapon coming up is
by
the
the way,
blocking from the financial system.
yeah, which by the way, this method, this is what the journalists of the French Revolution who ended up succeeding. This is how they were treated in their time. There's constant surveillance, police raids, incarcerations. Many of these people went to jail multiple times, right? And a lot of it was for the stuff they'd said. So interesting to see that today's vigorous journalists are treated the way that the journalists of the French Revolution ended up succeeding were treated in their day.
So I I want to focus on the financial system because that's where we're going to talk crypto, right? That's where this conversation is going to drift into crypto because with the blocking of the financial system, particularly because right now, the whole story. Go to school, get good grades, maybe go to college, get married, get a job, buy a house, have a family. But the whole boomer American dream is gone, right? Things don't work like that anymore. I mean, we talked about the institutionalization of the media. Well, how many hours could we go on about the institutionalization of the public educational system and the college and university systems, right? Is so. I mean, we're in a situation where if kids growing up participate in what society tells them to participate into, what their parents tell them to participate in, or their grandparents tell them to participate in, because when they participated in it, they were rewarded. When they follow the guidelines provided to them from society, they get punished, right? You graduate with a useless degree. No one cares about it when you're looking for a job, and you're loaded up with a completely unsustainable amount of student debt that you can't bankrupt out of, right? So we could see that the instrument of expansion is not serving the general population very clearly through these examples, right? Now,
Absolutely.
um, and then as we said before, every institution now is essentially playing whack a mole with all its competitors. Enter stage crypto, right? Now, if you've listened to the show at all, you know we do not believe in the barter theory of money, right? So I first want to take a stab at most crypto enthusiasts who think that the value of crypto is going to come from this like Mises style money regression theorem from a barter concept. Doesn't work like that. We're talking a different value of crypto on the show. The main value of crypto, my opinion right now, we'll see what Nima says to this. The main value of crypto that I've seen right now is it has allowed people to continue engaging in the financial system of society, even though the traditional avenues have blocked them. Gab being a great example of this, and they're not the only example. Is that the we're getting a new instrument that's up and coming that is circumventing the old financial system, which is not functioning very well anyway. Like we just said, it's becoming institutionalized. It's circumventing the old financial system to allow people who should, in quotes, should have been blocked out of society to continue to exist in society. And because of its very decentralized nature, playing whack-a-mole with it is really hard. Now, what I think we're moving on to, and I think this is where this gets really, really important, is that can crypto act as, let's go back to what we talked about at the beginning, the instrument of expansion needs to create surplus, save that surplus, and reinvest that surplus into new invention that allows you to create more surplus. Can that be done through crypto? And I think right now we're starting to see the very beginnings of it.
Absolutely.
Uh, Nima, can you talk about Mineral, the
Yeah.
Mineral project? Because I think it's a
Mineral
perfect example of this.
is a asset that was created on the Bitcoin blockchain. Um, the bigger picture, this asset was created as a BRC under the standard that's called BRC 420, which in turn is a standard that utilizes the um, ordinals meta protocol. And the ordinals meta protocol is a protocol that was developed to store data on the blockchain that that it'll persist on the blockchain. So it was first used to create NFTs, JPEGs, artworks and memes that people appreciate, kind of like art from way back in the days that we still appreciate today. Artifacts, etc. It was a method to store data on the Bitcoin blockchain and basically create NFTs on the Bitcoin blockchain. But then people started creating, I guess, the mineral you could call a certificate of ownership that you've invested in a project. You bought the mineral, right, in a pre-sale. You got the mineral in your wallet. You can always prove that you own that mineral in a decentralized fashion. You own the private key. You can prove ownership of the mineral. And the money is used by the company to buy Bitcoin mining equipment and mine Bitcoins. And then the profits get distributed to the mineral holders. Now, this could be done in all kinds of this.
And I just want to be clear that Bitcoin mining, we're talking actual computers in an actual space doing actual, like, there's physical equipment being purchased for this. There's something actually getting invested into. That isn't just
Exactly.
like, oh, here's a new token, here's a new token, here's a new token. No, we're investing in real stuff to give you a profit in Bitcoin.
Exactly. And so then every day people get their Bitcoin distribution um, based on the amount of minerals they hold, based on some other investment mechanics. There's another token they've issued called the miner token. But this is a method. So this could be any kind of enterprise. Doesn't have to be a Bitcoin mining operation, but this is the first thing that they've done. But this is a decentralized model of issuing certificates on the blockchain that entitle you to ownership in a source of or in a share of the profits that are generated from the business.
What, and then in connecting what I was just saying before, is that this had nothing to do with the traditional financial system, right?
Yeah, it
It
basically circumvents the
No one had to go
need.
to a bank.
Yeah,
no one had to go to venture capital. You didn't
yeah.
have to
And
pitch
if you could
anybody.
share what
Yeah.
I'm just trying to share
Yes.
here on the screen. Um, they didn't have to use they didn't have to go to the stock market, right? They didn't have to beg for SEC approval. They just issued assets on the blockchain and got their project funded that way, and they're continuing to issue new certificates that allow them to expand their operations, allow you to profit if you keep reinvesting, restaking, etc. So this is a new model of finance. I mean, this not even pumping this particular project necessarily, right? Maybe
It's
it's
just
a
a great
flop.
example.
It's just an example of what can be done. So anyway, the I guess I already explained the
No, no. Well,
ordinals thing,
I think
but
it's a great
so it,
example.
well, so yeah, what's going on here? So because we're talking about what gives crypto value, right? Now I've been saying, I don't know for how many years now, I've been saying this, that the ultimate value proposition is that you can store data on the blockchain for eternity, immutably, in a decentralized platform, something that's never existed before. But to do that, you need to pay fees in bitcoins. That is where the ultimate demand for Bitcoin comes from. It's from the fact that you have to pay these fees to store data on the biggest blockchain ever. And guess what? This is when ordinals was discovered or proposed by Casey Rodarmore, and then people started implementing that. People start realizing, oh, wait, I have to pay really high fees to inscribe bigger data on the blockchain. But guess what? People are willing to pay those fees. So the ultimate source of crypto value is, like I've been saying, uh, the fact that you have to pay fees to store certain data on the blockchain. Everything else flows from there. And maybe Bitcoin was always supposed to be that thing where you store certain data on the blockchain and you need the Bitcoin token for that. And that's why the Bitcoin token has value. Could be that I'm wrong. Could be maybe this thing goes away. Maybe people start developing more efficient ways of storing data. But nonetheless, it always comes down to what do people do when what do people need their bitcoins for? Then ultimately, uh, you can only pay your blockchain fees with bitcoins and with no other currency. That's the one unique thing about Bitcoin and any other cryptocurrency, right? It allows you to pay transaction fees on their respective blockchain, and you pay transaction fees to store data on the blockchain. Most of the time, it's just a transaction, but a transaction itself is also just a piece of data saying transfer two bitcoins from Dylan to Nima, or hopefully from Dylan to Nima.
No,
Um,
hopefully from Nima to Dylan. I want give me 2 bitcoins.
yeah, no. Um, so I'm just saying, everything you're doing on the blockchain is a new entry on the blockchain. Whether it's, hey, transfer money from Nima to Dylan, or whether it's, hey, look, here's a funny monkey JPEG that is part of my art collection and that'll be on here forever now. Oh, guess what people start doing recently? Inscribing the Afghanistan leaks, the Afghanistan logs from WikiLeaks on the Bitcoin blockchain. So good
So
luck.
it can never be deleted. Yeah.
Yeah, so this will always be out there forever now, dear NSA, CIA, all the other assholes. Good luck trying to whack a mole that out of existence. It's not going to happen. And there's going to be more of this, is going to become a thing. People will put important info that is highly controversial and highly offensive to certain elitist or self styled elite groups. They will put that on the Bitcoin blockchain. And this is where the value for Bitcoin flows from, ultimately from this transparency that you can put data onto a data ledger for eternity, immutably, that's decentralized, available to anyone, everywhere, and everyone, everywhere. So that creates an asset that where there's a demand, people can hold it, people can trade it, people can use it to buy things with it, people can use it to invest in projects. It has created a big pool of savings that's now sitting at I think something like $2 trillion. Okay, this is not uh, dollars. This is
This is
not
like government budget level.
Yeah,
Not the
this is.
U.S. government,
I mean, yeah,
but
it's like the total treasury debt outstanding is probably something like 35 trillion or so now. So that's probably somewhat the total money in the country, but plus bank deposits, obviously. But it's getting into that ballpark, right? I mean, I think crypto's market cap will grow and grow. And here's a big pool of savings that has grown out of nothing, out of nowhere. It has grown into what it is now, and that's money that people will have ready to deploy into new projects and
and
new
then the
operations.
project that you just described, the mineral. I mean, whether or not you care about, like, okay, you bought some Bitcoin equipment so you could pay everybody some more Bitcoin, okay, whatever. No, that's missing the point. The point is these guys had a project that existed in physical space and time, and they said we're going to utilize these tokens in order to acquire the equipment and pay the people back. Well, what's to stop? Hey, I'm going to start a company that has nothing to do with crypto,
Yeah,
but I'm going to utilize crypto in order to make that happen.
yeah.
Right? Well,
So somebody can.
here's this project that we want to do, and we can completely bypass the entire. Like you said, SEC don't care about that. Some bank doesn't like me, don't care about that. I can't have a credit card, don't care about that. I can entirely do this on a decentralized network where there's no one, there's like no valve to turn off,
Right,
right?
there's no
There's no mole
country
to hit
behind it.
with the whack a mole.
There's no nation behind it that you need to appease or whatever. You're operating on the blockchain. You're operating in the wild west of the decentralized crypto space at this point. So um, you could be like, let's say you're a whistleblower in the NHS or in the CDC, and you want to start a media company, and people are behind you. You've been publishing stuff here and there already, but you want to scale it. You could issue a token on the blockchain and grow that way. Now, granted, there's legal challenges with this kind of stuff at the moment, right? So, but that's legal. That's legalese. That's
Well,
not gonna.
and it's not like it's going to be smooth. Everything's going to be smooth.
Right.
This is
So
the battle that we're talking about, right?
yeah. So words on a piece of paper aren't going to stop this thing. They're going to stem it for a little while, but this paradigm, this technology, this ability to do this exists, and so people will do it, and it'll change how. Like we've said on many of our recent shows before, the world is becoming more decentralized. The world is becoming more competitive. It's becoming more. Um, I guess if
Autonomous.
huh
Autonomous.
more autonomous. Yeah, it's going back from a highly planned system to a more decentralized system potentially.
Hmm.
It's becoming more. If we want to use, I don't know if you listened to the recent episode a Tinfoil had with our friend Ian Ferguson, but it's becoming more Luciferian as opposed to Molochian. Is what he would say,
Yeah.
and his characterizations are so perfect because he talks about the Molochians. Imagine the Harkonnens from Dune, basically. That's like the perfect illustration of Molochians, like the Henry Kissinger. I mean, literally, I have a hard time distinguishing Henry Kissinger from
Baron Harkonnen.
the Baron Harkonnen. So
That, I never put that together. That's pretty
these
funny.
like really fucking evil, gray, dull people. Like Planet Harkonnen, everything's gray and dull. I mean, it's um, that's what I see when I see Hillary Clinton speak. When I see Klaus Schwab speak, it's like a Jabba the Hutt stuffed into a human suit. Trying to
Speaking the
act
most boring thing that could possibly
right.
be. Like, how is anybody even keeping their eyelids open listening to this
Like
garbage?
the Bursa, the Pfizer, the veterinarian who runs Pfizer, these people when they talk, this is like literally, I see like a Harkonnen dude stuffed in a human flesh suit, and then uh, Armani suit on top of that, but like no soul behind what they're saying. That's kind of what I see. So the new age, as Ian Ferguson says, as we um, ascend into a golden age at one point. It'll be a long time down the road, but we ascend into the Luciferian age, which is narcissistic and highly competitive, very appreciative of skill and
Challengers. Yeah.
meritocracy and challenge. Versus Molochians, they just want static, they want stasis, just like a
Slavery. No,
swamp.
no creative thought. No free will.
Right. This is the
Yeah.
system that's been running the world for thousands and thousands of years, for like since probably maybe I don't know, in Ian Ferguson's timeline, it would probably since Atlantis ended, right? That was probably when we descended into this dark Molochian age, when people,
Hmm.
even way back in the biblical days, when people worshipped uh,
Moloch, literally.
Moloch. I don't know if Moloch's the same as this Baal god, the god of whatever. But yeah, the child sacrifice, super evil stuff, and just the spirit behind everything you see big tech doing today, just suppressing and make it go away. And on the ground level, the useful idiots who operate for them, just yelling and screaming and chip on their shoulders, demanding that everything they wish for be done. So this whole thing is going away because the world's becoming more decentralized, more appreciative of meritocracy, and more competitive, also narcissistic. So there's an overlap between the Luciferians and the Molochians, but everything that we're seeing, all these trends towards decentralization, they fit very well within this competitive paradigm. They don't fit very well within this static, swampy Molochian paradigm of the past thousands of years.
Quick aside here. If everybody who's watching this now or recording could like, share, and subscribe it helps us out a lot.
Yeah,
I
seriously.
hate saying it, but it's just true. And we don't ask you for any money. We spend a lot of time and effort and resources creating this
Every
content.
like
So
and every share. People always say, "Hey, your show should have way more viewers." Yeah, maybe it would if you just liked and shared it, because every like apparently gets you 5 more viewers. Every share, probably even more than that. Subscribe. Every
sure,
like.
right when we said it, the viewers went up. Yeah, so we'd really appreciate that. We think we make some pretty good quality content. We understand we're a little bit long form, which is hard to compete with in this modern, like, get it across to me in 10 seconds or I'm moving away sort of thing. But if you guys could like, share, and subscribe it'll seriously help us out a lot. So going back to Atlantis and Bitcoin and Moloch and Lucifer here. here. um,
Light
so
discussion over here.
So I no, actually I want to pull this back to evolution of civilizations, looking at the instrument of expansion again. So we've got we're in this age of conflict. This Western civilization is facing this fourth age of conflict in its evolution of civilizations. Nima and I have been arguing very hard that we have the very, very real potential, and we're honestly on the trajectory to a fifth age of expansion, and that the battle is happening right now, and that our hypothesis, I mean, I'm not saying I'd put my golden stamp seal of approval that this is 100% going to be the case, but my hypothesis is that the new age of expansion, or excuse me, the new instrument of expansion is starting to form in the cryptosphere, and that example that we just described about mineral is a really good indicator of, okay, what is the instrument of expansion? It is the thing that creates surplus, saves surplus, and reinvests that surplus into new invention. Well, if the old financial system's not doing that, but this new financial system can come and people can say, okay, here's all the savings flying around. How do I utilize that to create a project? Now, again, this thing where, hey, we'll use your Bitcoin to buy machines to get you more Bitcoin. That's not exactly, going to lead us to a new age of expansion. But that's the principle. That's a project that worked that way, where we can say, okay, can we utilize that, Nima? For example, what if we created a new public, or I don't even want to use the word public. If we created a new educational system, or the seed of a new educational system that utilized finances through that method, where people could get an education to be successful within the world here and now without 15,000 hours on top of a 4-year degree that puts them permanently in student debt.
Well, yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I'm just wildly pulling ideas out of my head that this new I mean, what looks like going to be an instrument of expansion can direct us into by completely
Well,
circumventing, bypassing the old one.
right, right. Or what if we so because we have this big AI machinery coming down on us, what if we created an AI that could be funded through cryptocurrency?
Yeah, you got. Are you pulling the website up right now?
Yeah, I was
I mean, if the mineral wasn't a good example, this is.
yeah, I was just looking for it. I wanted to make it smooth, but um it's fucking Brave Search, man. It's like useless uh as hell.
More.org. MOR.org. I
Oh,
got it
that's
right
what
here.
it was. Right, all right.
But I want you to share it because you're better at scrolling around and clicking stuff than I am while we're talking.
Is that right?
That is right. I'll talk and forget about it. It's there.
I'm the scroller. Yeah, got it. Okay. So yeah, so for example, we have this AI domination system coming down on us. What if we could just compete with it using cryptocurrency? And I just shared it here, and we see it now.
Okay, there it is.
So guess what? This is what Morpheus AI is doing. It's collecting. So they have several steps: capital, coders, compute, community.
What? And then, I'm sorry, but before you get into what exactly Morpheus is doing, I want to describe real quick here. Let me go back to here. Why this is important? Because we've got, like you said, the AI dominance coming through, and that AI dominance is essentially monolithic data capitalist crazy entities controlling the AI, acting like it's unbiased when in reality it's got whatever biases that its programmers program into it. I mean, just look at that new one that Google came out with. Bard was it?
Yep.
They can't even draw a white person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the AI that's coming out is so obviously biased, and that
Right.
this is the thing that's supposed to be coming to replace local government and start telling us what to do, and that we're supposed to give up more and
And
more of
it's yeah,
our control to this stupid machine
and they're going to
that's
try to make
completely
it
centralized.
happen. They're going to make it try to happen by government decree, like they did the COVID mandates. They're going to decree that this is the AI that you're going to use for your children's education, or these are the approved AIs, right? We talked
Right.
with David Johnson about the executive order that was recently
I was just
signed,
going to bring it up. Yeah.
right? So, industry capture or whatever, what is it called?
Well, yeah,
Some
the executive order was essentially, I mean, and it's like 3 months ago now or something,
r-
that
the-
the Biden administration came out with an executive order that said, you know, in
no,
order to be a functioning AI, you have to
yeah,
hit these list of
right.
requirements,
So
which was totally a regulatory capture.
your driver's license. So,
Yeah.
but this was last year, I think already. It was in October, if I'm not
Oh, okay.
mistaken. This
Okay.
executive order where the government will basically put its stamp of approval on the proper AI, and then they'll start just telling you this is the AI that you have to use to get your kids educated and all this stuff. It's going to take a while, but this is their plan, and it's
Right.
sort of starting to come together. Now, what if there was a crypto-funded AI that
Yeah.
couldn't be stopped?
What can we contrast against that? Okay, bringing it back up.
So yeah, so we have Morpheus AI, which is funded through cryptocurrency. Uh, you can go to Coinbase, buy some Ethereum, send it to your MetaMask wallet, and stake Ether. Um,
Which Nima and I are actively doing right now.
yeah, yeah, we're doing that
Yeah.
actually, and I'm actually about to invest some more. But um, stake Ether. So they take your Ether, they stake it in the Ether network, and they earn the staking fees from from that. This is how they fund themselves, and then you get Morpheus tokens in return
So
as a
they create a new
reward.
token, right?
Yeah, they're creating a new token that will then later on be used to get special, get improved services within the Morpheus network, and well, whatever. I don't think they're fully decided on yet. But there's going to be some kind of reward mechanism where you can use the more token to utilize the Morpheus AI more efficiently than if you were to use it without the tokens or whatever.
And the cool thing
So
about this is there's no organization, right? I mean, this executive order, Dave was pointing this out to us, is an executive order targeted, if your organization is going to use an AI, it has to follow these rules. Well, there is literally no organization here. There's no
Yeah.
LLC. It's the whole thing is built on such a decentralized network that,
Founders Anonymous.
yeah, yes. And I think it's important that we point out what this AI is supposed to do versus what all the other AIs are attempting to do right now. The other AIs are right. I mean, Google's or Microsoft's or whatever. They're highly centralized. They're pretending to be unbiased, but they have whatever biases the programmers program into them. And these are the AIs that are supposed to start controlling more and more of your life, where all your data goes up to these, centralized clouds where they can control everything from that centralized cloud. What Dave was talking to us about Morpheus was this AI is your personal assistant. It learns from you, it keeps your data with you, and helps you do things that help you, which is different from Nima's personal assistant that does things that helps Nima, and they're all disconnected and all decentralized, right? Which AI is going to be, if we move forward and everyone's got to use AI just like everyone's got to have a damn smartphone now, right? If we're moving into a future that looks like that, is it going to be a more free future if Google and Microsoft control everything with their AIs, or is it going to be? I'm clicking around while we're, or is it going to be a? Oh, see, this is why I can't be the guy sharing screens because it just totally interrupts me. Okay, Nima's got I think the white paper pulled up.
Yeah.
Is it going to be this total centralized control AI, or is it going to be an AI that's completely decentralized where you can't steal each other's data, and it's your personal assistant to help benefit you? Now, per the executive order, if our interpretation is correct, which I believe it is, which was in effect at whack-a-mole, right? Okay, these little AIs they're not allowed to exist. Only the big ones that we say could exist. Well, you can't play whack-a-mole with this because there's no fucking organization.
Right.
It's decentralized. Yeah.
The author of the white paper is anonymous. Of the original Morpheus white paper is anonymous. There's no organization. Everyone can download the client, run it on their computers. Everyone can stake their ETH. Everyone can.
And sorry, it's funded outside of the traditional financial system.
Yeah.
It's funded with Ether.
Exactly. So that's very powerful. And also, remember the sentence down here. By putting the individual at the heart, we move toward the resolution of the alignment problem. Each day, the user confirms their smart agent is benefiting them and acting according to their goals by approving the actions it prompts the user to take. All secured with cryptography that is impossible for an AI to generate or fake. So basically, this is a very tentative AI that learns with you. It's not an AI that hoovers up a crap ton of data, adds some idiot's algorithm to it, and then produces some stupid ass output that you're supposed to accept. It's like the founding fathers were African Americans. Men and women are hard to distinguish. There's no clear blah blah blah.
No. What was the part? What is someone posed a moral question in one of these things, which was like, is it what's worse, misgendering a trans person or oh god, what the heck was it? Misgendering a trans person or stopping pedophilia? And the AI is like, well, that's difficult to answer. Like, come on.
Yeah. So yeah.
I do want to mention how this is funded because I think we glossed over the details and it's not exactly clear. You took a while to explain it to me, but I think I got it now. So when we say it's funded by Ether, and that me and Nima right now are using Ether to fund it, we didn't spend our Ether. We didn't say, hey, here's an Ether. We're going to give it to you so you can fund this thing, right? That's not what happened. What we did is we staked it. And so with the staking Ether, it takes the Ether that you have and it earns an Ether return, right? You want me to show that screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have the total deposits here listed.
So So let's just take one ether for example. So I take my one ether, I stake it, so I get a return, but I give that return to the Morpheus project,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? Now, so
But
basically, if I have one ether and it's creating, a hundredth of an ether a day, probably not that much,
you
but
kind of
whatever.
have you kind of have to explain what staking is, though, if you want to
Yeah,
explain this
yeah,
to
you're
people.
probably better at explaining it than I am. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the world of Ethereum, there's this concept called proof of stake. Oh, there's the two main competing methods of achieving consensus on a blockchain are proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work is the Bitcoin model, where miners use like very advanced chips and a lot of electrical power to solve complex problems, and then prove to the world that they've gone through the work necessary to find the solution to a problem, and they get to add a new ledger entry to the blockchain that still has to follow all the rules of the system. So if they solve the algorithm, if they solve the puzzle, and then add a false block, they lose the block, and they've lost all the efforts and energy expended to get into that. So in the world of Ether, they use a consensus mechanism called proof of stake, where you don't have miners, expending electricity, etc., to solve some complex puzzles, but instead you have all the holders of Ethereum are given the opportunity to lock their ether up in a smart contract, and then with that ether that they've locked up in proportional amount, they get to vote on whether or not a new block can be added to the blockchain or not. Once again, the block has to comply with all the um, valid protocol rules. If it doesn't, then your ether actually gets slashed, the ether that you stake. So you get punished. So you don't get to just roguely do whatever you want within the system, but you get to vote on whether or not a new block can be added, and depending on how much ether you've staked. In practice, most people contribute their ether to staking node, and then some organization that's more equipped to actually make these voting decisions will do them. But you can also technically you can run your own staking node if you want. But this is so basically, instead of mining, you stake, and for the stake you get a reward. So what's the mining reward in the world of Bitcoin is a staking reward that you earn as a staker in ETH. So as people conduct transactions on the Ether blockchain, they pay fees. Those fees go to the stakers who facilitate adding new
That's
blocks to the
interesting.
blockchain, the
Yeah,
system. So yeah, so that staking fee that you and I, everyone, we can earn that. You can earn like 2.5% by staking your ETH um, at the moment. But if you give your ETH to Morpheus, you basically stake your ETH. You give it to Morpheus, and they stake it within the Ethereum network. This is basically how it works. Not exactly, but it's kind of, because technically, actually, what you're doing is when you're staking on Morpheus, if in case anyone's interested, you're using your Ether to buy liquid staked ETH from Lido. Fine, Lido is a company that takes your ETH and handles the staking node and all that, and gives you in return gives you a currency called liquid staked ETH. So it's kind of confusing, but this is a version of ETH that you can still transfer around on your MetaMask wallet or whatever, but it also earns an interest automatically for you. So you don't have to take care of the staking. But so then you give that liquid staked ETH to Morpheus, and Morpheus will start earning your staking rewards, and that's the money they collect. You see
right.
down here it says current daily reward. Oh no, that's the reward they pay out, but it's probably in some sort of amount also that they have every day from these staked ethers here that they use to fund their project. And you can withdraw your ether anytime you want. You'll stop earning the Morpheus token, but you have all your ether back. You
And
didn't like spend
that's the
them.
important point here, I think, is
Yeah.
that basically, I mean, like, imagine you had $100 and you stuck it in an account that paid 2%. And the way that you're going to decide to help fund somebody is you never give away your $100. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to stick it in this account and I'll go give you the 2%. Now, an additional thing happens on top of that, which is you get a Morpheus token.
Yep.
Right, so you get a new crypto asset, and then I mean I don't know what they're going to do with it in the future, and I'm not sure they fully know what they're going to do with it in the future
Yeah.
yet. But that crypto asset is going to be needed to help utilize whatever is going to go on in this AI network, right?
Exactly.
So on one hand, you're funding them by giving them interest that you could have collected, but at the same hand, they're giving you a token
Yeah.
that's specific to that project. That I mean, presuming the project's going to work in the future, which is what you're betting on, right? That token's
Yeah.
going to be valuable,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So uh, again, all of that was nothing to do with the old financial system. It completely circumvents it. It totally bypasses the legal whack-a-mole that's being attempted right now in order to create this decentralized system that is going to be, I mean, looks like it to me, the main challenger to the centralized AI hell world that the Team Illuminati Overlord is going to try to shove down our throats.
And
So
so like David Johnson was saying, the US is becoming very uncompetitive because of their behavior right now, because of this executive order and all this stuff. So AI people are going to go to where, just as they did with crypto, they're going to go where the environment is friendly towards them. Maybe they'll go to Dubai, maybe they'll go to UK. Apparently the UK is not so bad at the moment in terms of AI laws.
for now, yeah.
Yeah, for now. Yeah. It's hard to imagine that they will stay. But anyway, you have to be flexible. You can move around. I mean, there's teams that do that, like the Telegram team. They say they're located in Dubai, but in reality they move around. They're flexible. They work from home. Um yeah, this is what's being done to circumvent the powers that be at the moment.
Hell yeah. That was a long-winded way to get here, but I think it was worth it. Here I'm going to stop sharing the screen. The overall story that we're always attempting to get across is don't be blackpilled, don't be fatalistic, because it comes down to the fact that I mean, I think we painted a pretty clear picture, not obviously not a picture in totality, of that there's a way out of this. We haven't fallen off the precipice. Yeah, things are bad. Yeah, things are ugly, but there's a battle happening right now. And if we want to win that battle, you can't be a deterministic asshole. You can't be blackpilled. You can't give up. Because when you I think people have a misconception about people who give up in a fight. You're not becoming neutral. You're actually helping the enemy.
Yeah.
If we're getting, if it's 1204 AD and we're about to get invaded by the Mongols in a city and we got walls and we see them coming over the corner and we're getting our defenses ready. And there's somebody inside the walls running around screaming, "We're going to die. We're all going to lose. We need to give up now. Just open the gates. Just open the gates." What would you do with that person? You'd fucking kill him or throw him in prison or something because he's actively demoralizing everybody, which is putting everybody at freaking risk.
Yeah, catapult them
Right?
over the city walls straight
Yeah,
into
you can
the
have him.
Mongol horde.
Right? As that like when you give up in the face of your enemy, you're not just becoming a zero. You're not just becoming neutral. You are actively aiding the enemy.
Yeah,
Because I
agreed.
mean, you're removing you're removing yourself from the force that could be resisting it, but your attitude has the potential to infect others, which is a big morale problem, right? And
Well,
which would stop other people from acting, which would infect other people. I mean, it's like this bacteria that just grows.
well, it was also
Black
historically. It was
pill
always
plague.
women played a big role in this historically, right? When a society gets conquered, the women are the first to encourage surrender and submit to the conquerors, become their
Hmm.
new whatever concubines, or so. Women are sort of, their DNA is kind of wired towards that kind of submitting to authority thinking. and especially, if the authority is scary and powerful and overwhelming, then I guess there's no point in resistance. And from a purely biological standpoint, it has actually been good for, it has helped genes
Right.
reproduce whenever
Right, because we're
women
gonna kill
were.
all the men and rape all the women. The women can go, "Hey, at least I get to live and pass on my genes." Yeah,
Exactly.
if I give up. Yeah.
It's a survival mechanism.
Word. Well, I think that covers the idea. We've got a new instrument of expansion looming on the horizon. It's the crypto world. It's battling all the systems at the same time. It's helping the media, which is what we're doing right now through crypto projects. I mean,
What?
look at Odyssey, right?
Yeah, Odyssey. Especially, I think the combination of crypto and AI is just so
Yeah, that's the next
explosive,
thing I was going to say.
right?
It's
I
on
mean,
AI, it's social media. Like,
yeah. So I heard somebody say this on a Bitcoin podcast maybe 10 years ago or so. I think it was Andreas Antonopoulos. He said that cryptocurrency can actually facilitate the singularity. Now, I don't think that there's ever going to be such a thing as a singularity, but he has a point in that cryptocurrency makes it possible for the first time for AI to spend money, right? AI could not spend money without cryptocurrency. It
mm,
couldn't like initiate a bank transfer, AI on the phone with a bank teller. Oh wait, we need to see your ID. No, but with cryptocurrency, AI can make payments. So one AI can make payments to another AI for services rendered by one AI to the other AI. And guess what?
mhm.
One AI can make payments to some human to work for it one day. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. There's going to be people who get paid in cryptocurrency by an AI system to do something for them in the real world that the AI can't do. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that because
I'm
I've watched
already
so much.
thinking of the sci-fi novel, how that would look like.
Well, I'm not saying this
If
because
we
I've
wrote
watched
that
so much
right now. Yeah.
Black Mirror, but just because I think it's really inevitable. I can't see how this is not going to happen, basically,
Hmm.
one day. And guess what? You could have an AI that makes payments to purchase mining equipment and start a mining farm and earn cryptocurrency and hire people to maintain the mining farm and use the profits to buy more mining. So this is technically feasible and possible. And I mean, it's only gonna, in the long term, with decentralized AI, it's only gonna happen where it helps us advance our human goals, I think,
Hmm.
ultimately. But yeah, totally. I think a cryptocurrency and AI is an explosive combo that's underestimated. And also, they both run on the same bottleneck, basically, at the end of the day, on the same power resource asset, which is chips, which is why I'm very bullish on chip producers, because also chip producers, they are neutral at the end of the day to what type of AI you're building. If is it centralized, is it decentralized? We're going to need the power of these chips to power the computation that's needed to do the AI. So companies like Nvidia, Nvidia has already become, over the past few months, one of the largest corporations in America. It's a $2 trillion corporation now. There's Taiwan Semiconductor, which makes a lot of the chips that Nvidia ends up incorporating in their circuits. There's AMD, there's Broadcom, there's all these companies that are ultimately producing the resources on which AI, but also cryptocurrency, to be fair, is running. So when people say that, oh, there's nothing backing a crypto, it's not true. There's tons and tons of very expensive hardware around the world that is backing cryptocurrency, and especially proof of work cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, not proof of stake crypto like Ethereum necessarily anymore. That is run through the staking algorithm, but I don't think there will ever be a time when there's no proof of work cryptocurrencies in the crypto ecosystem, because those are still considered the gold standard, the most trusted blockchains, or singular, the most trusted blockchain, is a proof of work chain, Bitcoin. I think there's a reason to it, because with proof of stake, it's conceivable that some large group of money holders, of token holders, of ether holders, for example, band together and do something harmful to the Ethereum network.
Hmm.
And that's less likely in the proof of work type of environment. There it would be miners who could come together, but still the miners, the incentives are so stacked against a rogue miner that it really makes little sense. And even if they did some damage, they could probably not sustain their damage. They could double spend a transaction, maybe cause some chaos, but there will be ways around that. And even if they completely muck up the blockchain, compromise it, there can be forks. There can be forks that won't be controversial out of the compromised network. So I think there's always going to be dynamic ways out of it. With proof of stake, it's a little bit up in the air. We don't really know. Ethereum is younger than Bitcoin, and also Ethereum started with a proof of work chain and switched to the proof of stake chain a couple of years ago. It was a pretty big anticipated change. So it's still sort of up in the air, but I can tell you from what I hear from people, even Ethereum enthusiasts, which I am too. I love Ethereum. I think it's a great network. I think it's going to have its purpose and its place. I mean, you see that right now, right? We to stake to get earn the more token, we need to stake ether. So there's a use case right there for Ethereum to power decentralized AI. Doesn't mean that that won't also be done with Bitcoin at one point, but just at the moment for smart contract type projects, Ethereum has become sort of the gold standard. But even people who are into Ether, they wouldn't keep all their crypto wealth in Ether. They would want to keep the majority of their crypto wealth in Bitcoin. But where they need it for smart contracts, etc., they bridge it or switch or swap it to Ether and do it that way. Point just being that I think there's always going to be proof of work blockchains, and with that, big demand for chips from that industry, but also from AI, obviously. So these two industries, I think they're really key, and the hardware that's powering them is chips. So that's why I think these chip companies will do very well over the next couple of years.
Hell yeah. Nima, we've been going an hour and a half.
Yay, we win
We
again.
win. So I'd like to take a reminder for everyone to like, share, and subscribe this,
Yes, we need you.
because it helps a lot. We think we make some good stuff, and if you could help us spread it, that would be spectaculous. And you could find us specifically at irita.tv or YouTube or Odyssey or wherever else you would like to follow us. You could find it's all listed at irita.tv. We appreciate you watching. This has been Dylan Moore and Nima Majur, and we'll see you next time.